a weirdo in this one. Hi, welcome. We are here with Nikki, who is the founder.
Hold on, we're looking at why it says that it's not streaming to Facebook. 1 second.
1 second. We got a little error notification in here. So we're in here with Nikki, and we decided to have a little coffee chat. It's not.
We just want to make sure.
It's not showing up. It's theoretically showing
Well,
up.
Adam looks at it. Nikki, Brandon Goodyear was like, I'm going to eat pancakes while I watch this because I posted it today. I reposted my friend who was like, Friday's pancake day. And I was like, that's amazing. I love it.
Those pancakes, I looked at them at first. I saw that you posted that and they looked like English muffins. First, they were like so thick.
Yeah, I feel like I can't get mine like that.
No, mine look like Michael Scott's when he like made paper-shaped pancakes.
I forgot about that.
Oh man.
Yeah, I feel like when I make pancakes.
There we go. We should be good now.
Cool. I grew up eating Bisquick, so I feel like my mom always got them really thick, but
yeah,
maybe we just need to go back to that.
I think I grew up with like paleo pancakes before paleo was a thing.
Oh, what was that?
Like maybe buckwheat and like very organic mustard seed, like grocery store health food stuff.
Oh my
God.
God.
I was like ahead of the curve 25 years.
Yeah. My mom used to bake sweet potatoes and then like blend them into the pancake mix. So I grew up thinking that pancakes were like orange.
That is really cool.
And then I ate like regular ones and I was like, oh, these taste way better. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm troubleshooting a little bit right here, but you can, Nikki, as we get started, just tell people kind of like what you do now. After I think you were doing a bunch of things. Maybe talk a little bit about sort of like what the Ultra Dose is all about, and what it looked like 2 weeks ago, and then what it looks like today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hi, welcome. For those of you who don't know, I run the Ultra Dose, which is a therapeutic yoga experience and well-being company. And essentially, 2 weeks ago, I was doing on average maybe close to 10, 15 private sessions a week. So I specialize in going into people's homes to do therapeutic yoga. It was a need in the community that I saw and instantly wanted to fill. And it's a beautiful metaphor to go into someone's home and to help them live better in their physical homes, their bodies.
Yeah.
And that included a lot of travel. I was super busy. I run this business by myself and with the help of many others, but essentially just me. And now, so that was 2 weeks ago, tons of traveling, tons of connecting one-on-one with people. And then now I have 0 miles on my car for the past 2 weeks. I've just been here, really beginning to build this online platform in a way that combines kind of like my old life and my new life. So my old life was a high school and middle school English teacher.
Right.
And I know. So for those of you who don't know, I was a teacher for 4 or 5 years. And I actually came to the Wonder Jam last April, April, May, to begin to really launch my business full time. So I saw kind of this shift coming. My husband works in a hospital, so I'd kind of like heard little, sound bites of things that are happening. I was like, this is not going to be good for a service one-on-one based industry. So it's like, wow, what am I going to do? How can I kind of like take this and shift it into another dimension, as I'll kind of say it. It's just like kind of evolved into a different shape. And I had joined the Gem Club at the time. I had kind of experimented with like other online platforms beforehand and like failed miserably, which is a funny story. And then this kind of happened and I was like, failure is not really an option. Like, let's just find a cool platform and stick to it before it's perfect and build it. So I've been building the Digital Dose, and that's kind of where I've been spending all my time lately. And I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you've had some cool, people seem to be engaging with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Talk a little bit about like what you do inside of there, or what the conversations look like for people now.
You know, I was a little nervous because I think like the biggest shift here, especially for yoga teachers, especially for anyone who like does fitness or who is like a teacher at heart, was like, we've done all this work to like move beyond insecurities of like, oh, will people show up to my workshop? And like anybody really, like, who's going to come to this? Who's going to show up to this? Like, I'm pouring my heart in. I hope someone's there. I think we've done that work, and then we have to like in that form, it's like, oh crap, like, is anyone going to sign up? Who's going to be in here? Who's going to talk with me? But now it's like, I put it out there before I had like the pricing structure and like all the nitty gritty details, because I wanted to talk to people outside of Instagram, outside of Facebook. I was like, I want to talk about these things that are really important, which is overall well-being and safe and powerful self-care. And that can look like journaling prompts, that can look like really deep self-inquiry. We have a book club that I just launched because I was an English teacher. So it's like, why not combine all these little pieces of the jobs that I didn't necessarily love, but like the aspects of that job that I loved. So we have 170 members. Like the first couple of days I launched it,
that's amazing.
I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing off of Facebook, off of Instagram. I'll be posting questions. I'll be posting meditations. Like, I don't really know what it's going to look like yet, but you can really trust that it's going to be like a safe space for you to like find a little bit of your power again, and to like be able to settle into what well-being means to you. So it's been fun. That's awesome. It's honestly, you know, I'm not the kind of person who like wakes up and has a very set routine. That's never been how I operated.
Yeah.
And every morning I actually really look forward to being in this space with people and having dialogue. And the whole purpose was part classroom, part yoga studio, because that is unlike anything I've really experienced in my life. And it's like, well, you know, if not me, like who? If not now, when?
Yeah. I love what you said, though. It's a lot of the feelings that we are experiencing with this like digital challenge, it existed in person. You know, it's like, will this work? Will people show up? Will people buy it? And so anyone who's starting a business right now for the first time, like, that is true. That was true before the world changed a little bit. And I think that it makes you feel maybe like you're not alone when you know that everybody's like, okay, how do I pivot? How do I, you know, still draw in the attention of my customers while still being respectful of what's happening in the world. And I think that what you're doing it probably speaks so much to people. So that's awesome.
Thank you. It's been a big shift of like, and I think right now there's this pressure to do and like to do this, to do that, to do this. But like really the nailing point and like driving it home should be like, who do I want to be right now? And like, who do I want to inspire people to be? It's like, we need to be less of like to-do lists and more of like to-be lists right now. And I think that's been like a really big wake-up call for a lot of people, which is either inspiring or jarring. Like I haven't really found a middle spot for people.
For sure. Yeah, I might have mentioned this on another live video that we had, but it does feel like it feels like you have to start to play the long game. You know, it's like you want to be consistent for your community and for your friends and family. And, you know, I've had such amazing, I would say adults in my life as I was growing up who were always really consistent, even in the times when like life feels like it's shifting. And you realize that was like really intentional of them. And I think that as business owners, we're doing that now. So
yeah, that's cool. Talk about, so when you're listening to your people, like when you're listening to the members who are inside of the Digital Dose, what feels like the struggles that people are having right now? Or what do you say? I guess there's two questions to it, and you can speak to either one if you feel like. What are maybe some of the struggles that people are falling into in these moments that you see people kind of like tripping up on? And then also, you might phrase it a different way, is where do you see people handling this moment really well?
So I'll answer the second question first.
Cool.
Because, like yesterday I was really marinating on like this type of question because it brought me back, ironically, to being in college and learning how to teach. Right? I mean, I had a double degree in English and teaching, so I had that really great balance. But at the time, I was like, this is so pointless. Like, this is so easy to me. Differentiating instruction. So, this was like a huge buzzword 5 years ago, is differentiating. And it's something that I consider today, but I just didn't realize it until build eventually, 8 types of learners. And I think all of us in every part of our life are a student and a teacher. So your people are, different, they possess different learning types essentially. So like the people who are doing this shift really, really well, whether it's like as a parent, as a business owner, as a yoga teacher, like whoever, they are learning how to differentiate their instruction, their message, their offering, because this is making us wake up to the fact that yes, like some people are auditory learners, some people are like visual learners, some people are tactile, kinesthetic, and there's these 8 different types. And I think in our business, we get so narrowed down to one learning type because we're so obsessed with like niching out that we like really close off those other 7 types of learners. So something like in my experience with the digital dose is I was focusing so much in my business 2 weeks ago with like one-on-one sessions, which takes a lot of convincing to get people to do up front.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that so many people in my audience are auditory learners. So like they are vibing on these like daily, I call them coffee and breath or breath and coffee meditations.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And I do it every single morning and they're like, wow. And it's the same material I've been regurgitating for the past year.
Yes.
And these are my same people, but they've never heard it until now because this is the style and way that they learn. So people who are doing really well right now are learning how to differentiate their message, their instruction, because we're kind of being forced to. And we're stepping up to the plate that way. And that is, that is diversifying. Whether it's in communities, whether it's, whatnot. So I think those are the people who are really nailing it. And people who you said, what is the need right now? It's interesting. The need is the same, but I also didn't hear it until now because I was too in my own head about like marketing or like getting out there or getting new people. I think I was playing the finite game, which was like a beginning, middle, end before this happened. And I was really like micro focused on the little stuff.
Yeah.
And now I've been able to dive into like this infinite game of, I don't know when this is going to end. And I don't really have like an outcome from it. And I've been able to like open up creativity because of it. But I would say the people are really, really in the need of therapeutic practices, which are not, and like, different things will serve different people, but like the people in the digital dose are not coming to do, like 10 push-ups every time they're tagged in it, and that's great for people who like love that style of movement and offering, but they're here because they have back pain. They're here because they're stuck at home with their kids all day. And yes, it's a blessing, but like, we don't have to like sugarcoat it. It's hard. So, like, they want meditations. They want journaling. They want like deep self-inquiry. Like people now are finally turning the lens back inward. So that has been like this huge shift and need in the community.
That's the truth. Yeah. It feels like that was one of the things after like 3 days I had looked at Allie and I said, it's amazing how much, so you realize like that we have these like trigger feelings and emotions and then a response. And we just like train, those like hardwired. So I wake up in the morning, and if I'm feeling like an ounce sluggish in the morning, I like walk down to the coffee shop. And that was I feel like a healthy way to deal with that thing. But then now I've been like, I don't have that same thing. And you realize like there'd be more, like the first couple of mornings I just wake up and be like, what do I do right now?
Right.
And you realize you're like, gosh, I've been had felt like a very intentional answer is now taken away, and I'm forced to sort of deal with that underlying thing, whatever that was.
It's like turning a destructive emotion almost into like a constructive like nature and plan and like streamlined process, which is really scary for a lot of people to have like these very intense emotions over here, like within yourself, like on the left side. If I'm going to get into like, Taoism, it's like on the left side, we're very internal, and we live in a very external society where like we're always going out, like we can kind of not distract ourselves, but like move away from emotions. And now I think people are being like almost, like shocked back into what's happening on the inside. And I think having these tools online, especially like in the digital dose or like online streaming, things like that are so vital to people right now.
Yeah. I had a phone call with a client at the beginning of the week, and he made a comment like, remember, he's like, it just seems so stupid that I was concerned with some of the like you kind of talked about where it breaks it down into that finite and then the infinite. Like, he's like, I was so concerned with some of these like branding elements, and like it's important for things to look good, obviously, but in a way you look back to it and it's like it doesn't really matter. And he got a phone call from like a printer, and they were like, we printed all this stuff, and it's like his business was so different. He's like, great, I'm really glad that I did. It's like we can't regret, but it makes you very much. We keep getting these reminders of that 2 weeks, 4 weeks ago life where things have really shifted.
Yeah. So for you, what has been something that for you has been really centering is sort of throughout this whole practice, or what have you felt like your attention has been well served to be focused on?
One thing that keeps coming up for me right now, and I could talk all day, but it's been like proving myself wrong. I'm seeing this as like a really exciting, I want to prove myself wrong constantly. And that's something that I struggled with my whole life. Even like 2 weeks ago, I don't want to be proved wrong. I kind of don't want to go back and like, if I don't do it right the first time, I don't want to do it again. Like that's kind of my innate nature.
Yeah.
But right now, like I love being proven wrong because I've been proven wrong a ton in this process. And I think I can show like a lot of the final product in the digital dose and on Instagram. Like people aren't really seeing, like I had like a meltdown in my closet for like 30 minutes, like total meltdown, total crying. Like it was exporting a video and then it like failed at that last step. And something that's been really centering for me is like having a space that I can go, like have a meltdown in, and then giving myself like kind of a little time limit, and then knowing that like there's someone that has my back. So like my husband, I don't ask him advice on my business and direction of where I'm going right now, because for me, it's like I'm building something that hasn't been built yet. So like I'm really trusting that external vision, but I kind of really trust and rely that like he knows like when the right amount of meltdown is needed. And it's like I had that, and then he comes upstairs and goes, all right, like meltdown time is done. Like let's go like set up your yoga space. Like let's go get plans for it, make it look really nice, because a lot of people are getting stuck at like, I failed at this before, or like I don't have the right tools, or it's not nice enough, but like none of that is important right now.
Right.
And like I failed. So I epically failed at like leading an online platform, like hybrid with my private sessions. And it was like a month-long group that I did.
Yeah.
But it just like, I failed. It was not great. I was not as present as I should have been. But like, if I let that stop me, if I would have just been like, oh, I already know that I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
And I didn't prove myself wrong, like I wouldn't have this incredible community right now to like wake up to and go do stuff with, you know? So I think like honoring the fact that we need time for meltdowns and then getting them out, like honoring that instead of pushing through it. And then also like being willing to prove yourself wrong. Cause I think that's where a lot of the magic happens.
I love that. Yeah. It's almost like your failure isn't finite either. It's like, it's not just because you failed at it in one context. It doesn't mean that later you can't try something similar, you know?
It was so embarrassing. I mean, like, it was embarrassing because I knew that I wasn't doing a great job at it. And like my people knew I wasn't doing a great job at it. And like they gave me that feedback lovingly. I was like, oh God, like, okay, I'm just going to stick to in-person stuff.
Yeah.
And then turn around literally 1 week later, it was like, okay, now I can't do in-person stuff. Yeah. So I need to I got to figure this out. But yeah, being proven wrong right now, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think of that. There's so much of that I've seen with creative people or entrepreneurs where it's like this, the like shiny veneer of, I have to be doing this in a beautiful studio, or I have to be doing this in or even like doing photos of products for people who are trying to sell products or things like that. Like, it's like, lower our expectations, connect and communicate with other humans directly. And that has always worked. There's always been people with less than optimal or less than perfect Instagram aesthetic yoga studios who are doing incredible stuff, building incredible connections and networks, and speaking to their people and connecting with them deeply out of like lame community center places with folding chairs. Like this stuff is gonna happen. Like we can do this without it being a flawless Instagram aesthetic, whether that's like how we eat or where we meditate or a book that we're reading or whatever. And this whole thing has kind of been like I even said to you as we got onto this live stream, right? I was like, I get very conscious that we're like the same background all the time in this. And when we were in our studio, we could like live stream from a different spot every time. It would feel like, oh, this is a big studio. This is an interesting space. It's not like my house. And now the Wonder Jam is just like Desh would grab a squeaky toy. And he is like, he's like, I need
me attention.
I will say, this makes me think of, I have a newsletter that I send out every Sunday. And in one of them, I talk about like, it's okay if your stuff is ugly. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there are things that I remember from my childhood or that I have now that like aren't deemed beautiful, that can hold amazing memories or, serve a function. And so it reminds me of that every day that we're all forced to sort of like make do with what we have. And you can't buy things as quickly. It's just like, you start to really understand, your business, if you're a business owner, is so much made up of the people that you're serving. And it doesn't matter what your stuff looks like as long as it connects with them and it communicates.
Huge. And it, this is another thing that I would like kind of recommend. I don't love giving advice, but this is something that's worked for me. And that's, I did tell my husband, I'm like, the point of this is to like get people in a home practice, because I am that person who used to give every excuse, like, no, my dog's running around, or like, I could watch The Office again, or like, it's so nice outside, so I'm not going to do a home practice.
Yeah.
Or I don't have a space, or it's carpet, or you can see like we rent this home. We live in like the Ozark of Ohio pretty much. And it's like wood paneled walls and 80s carpet. And I'm like, I'm not practicing in this. I'll just like drive to a studio.
Yeah.
And I had that meltdown about the space not being nice enough. And he just like looks at me and goes, isn't this the whole point? Like, you're trying to get people to practice in their homes. Like, whether your home is perfect or not. And just like you said, Allie, like, host more dinner parties. Like, it's fine if your stuff doesn't match, or like, if you have like a scratched up table, or
no one cares.
And like, this thing that I read the other day, I don't go on Facebook much, but I thankfully saw something positive. And it said, in 20 years, when you are describing like what this experience was, like, you're going to say, oh, like so many people were affected, or like, these are the numbers of like X, Y, and Z and the stats, and it was terrible, and like blah, blah, blah. And like, your small children are going to say, I remember playing board games before dinner. Like, I got to run outside. I wasn't tired from waking up early all the time. Like, and I was like, wow, like, what if I could create an experience that like my people in 20 years are like, wow, this was such a interesting a meaningful time for me and impactful because like I could hop online and meditate, or because people like heard me and heard my voice, and like there were options to make me feel safe. Like I'm trying to like speak to the childlike wonder in people at this time, because what's the other option?
Right.
Despair.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah. I've like loved the outpouring. I mean, I think of like we all hang out in like a similar small business world, or there's a lot of similar connections in there. And Allie and I have just, you realize like the intentionality with which you spend money or you patronize those businesses. And I'm like, if we would have been doing this 1 year ago with like this intentionality, where every time someone orders carry out pizza, you feel like you're saving the neighborhood, you know what I mean? But that has been true. That's not just true now. It's been true for a long time. And those of us who talk to those pizza shop owners, you're like, they could have used the support for a while. You know, just because every small business or every like all of our neighbors around or those people we're connected with aren't posting a GoFundMe, you know, every day. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a struggle or wasn't like difficult to keep people paid, or people weren't doing all of that. And it's a beautiful, it's been cool. I think the thing that you had said of just being like, we can strip some of this like away and just what would it look like if I got really incredible at a home practice, or what if I like got really intentional about where I spend my money or where I get my groceries from, or any of those things, you know, like
or like who we're sharing this experience with too, because it takes as much energy to go up as it does to go down. So like I think right now we're also finding out like, wow, like it feels really good when I share like my fears and my doubts with like this person versus this person. Like we're actually really beginning to like digest a lot of our daily interactions. And I think that's a very powerful thing right now.
I have a question. How would you advise, or I know you don't want to give advice, but if someone wasn't already working with you or didn't already go to a studio or have some sort of connection into mindfulness, meditation, or yoga, like how would you advise someone looking for that online? I have a home practice that I've been bad at because of everything, but I can't imagine what it must feel like when everyone's going live all the time and it's like you want to support people. Like what would you say to look for?
That's I think like where I want to go first with that is like where to look for it. I initially speak to people, like my aim is really to get people, anybody like off the street, literally into this practice, whether that's like, I do this stuff with my car mechanic, like, and I love my car mechanics because I'm always getting my car done. So like that practice is going to look different than, you know, like the professional dancer who now does yoga in a studio. So I think my advice is like, be really conscious of like where you're looking for it, because on Instagram, there are incredible people now coming out of the woodwork, like those really small town studios and like those really like hidden gems within the community. But my advice is really read what they're offering, because if you read something they're offering that's like, hey, if you're super stressed out and you have low back pain, or let's say like you just need to chill out for a minute, like I think my advice is first register what you need. Because then finding the message and the people and teachers that like will really support you will be easier, instead of just like, I need to find something, even though I don't quite know what I need yet, because then you will find there's so many options now. I said this in the digital dose, like it was very hard for me to see how many live options there are, because I did not think it was supportive to people who don't have a practice, because it's so overwhelming. I think I would say register what you need. And then it's the same in a studio or online. It's like, trust the vibes you're getting from the people. If it doesn't feel good when you're listening to their messages, whether it's in a live or a paid class, like you have permission to go find someone new. And I wish more people understood that, because we get into this kind of like hierarchy mentality of like, oh, the studio must know best because it's really popular or because people love it, but like it might not be best for you.
Truth.
That feeling of, it's like a book, you know, you're like, you can stop reading it if you don't like it. know?
At any time. And like, if you value self-inquiry or you value asking a teacher questions, I would recommend, if you're new and like you've never even unrolled a yoga mat before and you just want to practice on your carpet, like find someone you can ask questions to, because that's, people don't realize they have the permission to ask questions and gain clarity. And I think
No, I think I love telling the story. We've worked with so many different yoga studios as in our business of either branding or websites or photography or whatever. And one of the things that we have found, and I sort of like reiterate, is that thing that you had talked about saying. I was like, yoga as a practice, just as a movement practice, is applicable to probably almost everybody. I'm going to say everybody in some way. It's just that most people only know certain kind of on-ramps, right? Because they only know like the incredible, beautiful, amazing Instagram-friendly yoga studio, but they don't know there's just a ton of other options. There's like seated yoga. There's like all sorts of easy to get into options for people. And we were doing branding for a yoga studio, and I had kind of built those like customer avatars that people do when they do that process. And I kept using the phrase crow pose as something that was like an elevated thing to be doing, like something only incredible yoga people can do. Yeah. And the instructor was like, you could probably do crow pose a little bit right now. And I was like, I don't know, I'm like a pretty stiff, like old former football player. And he was like, no, I bet you could do it. And he just like I tried it. He's like, do this. It will feel a little bit like he knew what he was doing with cues. So he cued me through one attempt, and it was, I almost like fell on my nose. And then the second attempt was like bad, but then the third one I did it a little bit, and another person who was sitting, and I was immediately like, oh, someone just showed me, like one person watched me do things and then corrected, and it took 13 minutes, and now I was like, oh, that thing that I thought was actually really scary was now approachable. Another person sitting at that table who's very competitive was like, I'm gonna go start doing yoga now, because if Adam can do that, then I definitely can do that. It was like, but yeah, that advice that you gave of getting an example, like find an instructor. I mean, yoga instructors are very available right now. I don't know if anyone has noticed that, but and be like, do like a FaceTime call or like a video call and be like, hey, I'm trying this thing seems hard for me. Am I doing this right? And it will take 17 minutes, but it might unlock that home practice for you in like a very easy to understand way. Or find someone like Nikki. Yeah.
And
Nikki will do that.
I spent a lot of time on Instagram. I love it. I've been making it a home since 2012 when it came out, a little more intentionally now, but you can always DM me, because I think helping people find, like being a yoga directory or just a self-care directory for people is another one of my values, because I might not be the right fit for everyone, but I know a lot of people. I am pretty good at kind of filtering through who's here to like perform and who's here to inform. Yeah. And like, I'm your girl if you want to be sent to someone that wants to inform you. Because my goal too is like, I don't want to be your teacher forever. Like, I want to be your teacher for a little bit and like go really deep with you, and then like give you those tools to like do it on your own. Because like, in my opinion, that's a real teacher. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That was spoken like a true educational background person, right? It's like, it's like if the student can go do it on their own, the teacher gets a high five, right? And send me my new batch of students. I'm ready to get more people doing it on their own. That's really cool. That's really cool. If you could, and this is the last question we always ask people, if you could, I always used to say grab the people listening by the face, but we don't do that anymore. If you could look them in the eyeballs and say, remind them of something, encourage them in some way, recenter them or help them refocus on what's really important right now, what would you say to them?
I would say that each day requires a little bit of grace and effort. And some days the day is going to demand something a little different from you. Like, it might demand a lot of grace, and you have to be really willing to receive that and give that to yourself. And some days it's going to take a hell of a lot of effort. And some days it's going to be like a fierce grace. That's what my teacher tells me, is like, some days, like, there are things that are going to knock you so upside down, but like, you have within you this like fierce grace to be able to handle it. So find a support system, find practices, whether that's like running outside, screaming in a pillow, doing yoga, like find that thing that connects you to like your inherent power of like having grace and making effort, and then deciding which you need in every moment.
Yeah, I love that.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you for that. If you want to pay attention to Nikki in the world, you can go to theultradose.com, and where else?
My Instagram right now has been like the main hub for people. I know it's overwhelming for you, but if you head to my Instagram, the Ultra Dose, or my name, Nikki Costa Lang, you can be directed to the Digital Dose, and you can join in there for meditations, for all these practices. My website's getting a nice little overhaul and timeout during this time. Yeah. So if you connect with me on Instagram, I'd love to just direct you in all those places.
Awesome. That's beautiful. I'm just for fun, because someone who's hearing your name but maybe not seeing it. I've got a nice. You can do this for the people who are watching live.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So this is Nikki Costa Lang. You can check out the Ultra Dose on Instagram, and you'll see such things as this. Yay. Or you'll see, if you go to the Ultra Dose, you'll see such things as all of these.
Yes.
So a lot of good stuff. I know this because people watching, I need to stop sharing my screen. People watching might not know this about you, but you would be open to a direct message being like, hey, I'm kind of struggling with this. How do you, It's like, I know that about you. Sometimes people watching this are like, I don't want to bother them, or they're really cool and busy. And I think if I could say anything to the people in the world right now, reach out, especially to the small business folks in the world, and be like, hey, what about this or whatever? Like, we're eager to have people help. Nikki is she's one of the beautiful Gem Club members. And so you can hop into the Gem Club if you would like. We have a free week trial that's going on inside of there. And we changed our price that will last for as long as this self-quarantine isolation exists, because we need online communities more now than ever. Nikki is doing a very similar thing as well with her group. So making it easy and available for people to jump in and connect. Both of our platforms, for those of you watching on some social network, both of our platforms are built off of Facebook and off of other things. And they both have like an easy, handy dandy app that you can just download and get on your phone, or you can hop into your browser. And one of the reasons that I know this is collectively true for both of us, so I'm speaking for all three of us in here, and I'm speaking for Desh as well. So he is bored of this conversation. Sorry. Yeah. He's back. It's like a person who fell asleep in a boring meeting, a work meeting, or there's like, hey. He's like, no, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah. Is being able to hop, like one of the greatest joys that I found is being able to hop into those communities. And maybe I have that like trigger to hop on my phone and start to scroll through things, is instead go hop into these other spaces where there isn't a ton of terrible news and there isn't wild people saying dumb things. People, it's like these communities and these platforms and networks of inspiring, encouraging, awesome people. Last night I was talking to a family member, and I said, one of the coolest things for me at this time is I get to talk to a ton of people like Nikki, streaming, but then also privately, who are just resilient, doing cool things, who are like, we're going to change and evolve and get better and, respond to the moment. And it makes the world a beautiful place, and you get to meet beautiful people when you get to hang out in those spaces. So I would encourage everybody to find, whether it's the Gem Club, Ultra Dose, or some other thing, find some place for yourself maybe that isn't one of those platforms.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for those of you watching, you can ask comments. If you tag Nikki in the comments in this, she will respond, because she's that type of person.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.